Welcome back to our final session for today, where it's all about data. It's estimated by some that the global number of connected cars could reach 2 billion by 2025, with the average car producing up to 30 terabytes of data every single day. Now, this should benefit drivers, manufacturers and broadcasters. But does it? I'm joined in the studio for this session by Lindsay Mack, who is Senior Manager of DAB and BBC Sounds External Affairs. Lindsay, lovely to have you here with us. That's your title. What does the job actually involve?
So thank you very much for the introduction. So I've been involved in DAB for a number of years, really, since sort of inception back in the very, very late 90s. And so I was at the BBC when we first introduced the first digital-only stations as well. And my role has been very much about growing DAB, so on all the different platforms, devices, and in-car in particular. And my role is still looking at DAB, and I'm chairing the Device and Automotive Working Group, which is part of the Government and Industry Digital Radio Audio Review, which is due to be published later this year. And that's looking at the future growth of DAB in particular. And I'm also working on BBC Sounds, which again is very similar to what I was doing for DAB, and how do we make sounds available on all the different devices as well.
So just tell us a little bit more about that.
So I think with sounds, this is looking at currently lots of people listening to sounds on smartphones. We want to look at the range of all the different connected devices, and with a big focus on in-car. In-car for the BBC, in-car radio listening for the BBC is really important. Up to around 15% of radio listening is done in-car. We need to try and preserve that and grow it as much as we can. Clearly, over the last 12 months, there's been a dip of in-car listening. We need to remind people that radio actually still is in the car. And I think DAB Plus actually plays a big role in that as well. It's in the majority of all new cars now, and we'll I think, continue to see that growing as well.
We've been hearing from various other sort of stakeholders involved in DAB, from automotive manufacturers, from some of the technology people. How much do you interface with different stakeholders in radio?
A lot. A big part of my role is actually talking to third parties, hence the external affairs bit of my role. So I talk to manufacturers and retailers a lot. We've done an awful lot of sort of, promotional type exercises with them over the years in order to try and grow DAB or DAB devices. So we talk a lot to broadcasters, European broadcasters. We're great believers in actually coordinating as much as we can. I think we need to collaborate. I think that's broadcasters, manufacturers and retailers working together. If we don't, we won't be successful in keeping radio healthy and vibrant. And that's what we're all working on at the moment. We need to make sure radio has got a healthy and vibrant future in the UK. And
have you found that's a relatively easy process, that collaboration? Because I would imagine there are different technological sensitivities, different sort of, product sensitivities to be aware of.
It's like everything, there's always competition, and competition is good. I think for us now, when we first started with DAB, it was much easier because it was a new technology, there were new devices, it was a new way of listening to your radio. I think now with smart speakers coming to the market, the retailer sector, I'm only talking about the UK here, obviously are standing back from radio a little bit more. The range of radios is much smaller than it used to be. They're putting a lot more effort into selling smart speakers, which is great for radio listening, but also at the same time is proving a lot of competition for broadcasters because you're giving a lot much easier access to music streaming services via those types of devices. So I think I'd say we have a good relationship with manufacturers and retailers and the European broadcasters. It's much harder, I think, to get all the retailers into one room round one table because there is a lot of competition there. But hence, that's why we have DR UK set up in the UK. That's one of the roles they do. WorldDAB does it here as well. They bring everyone together. And obviously, we work closely with the EBU, who brings a lot of the European public service broadcasters together.
So you mentioned a few of the challenges that you face. How would you sum up what you see as the key challenges going forward over the next, both short term and long term as well? Give us the short term first of all.
I think the key challenges going from now really over the next sort of 10 years. Again, in the UK, I think the biggest challenge for us is how do we keep the DAB radio sector thriving? Because people are changing the way they're listening to radio. As I say, we've seen a huge increase in people listening on smart speakers. We've seen a big decline in people actually buying DAB digital radios. A lot of that is due to lack of innovation. So we need, as an industry, to start innovating more. Smart speakers are great. DAB radios are very much sort of, you can only do really one or two things on them. A smart speaker has lots more functions and features. They're voice driven, for example. So you can interact so much more as a user as well. You can search for your content easier. DAB traditional radios, you can't do that. So there needs to be a lot more innovation. So I think over the next 10 years, that's what we're looking at. Can we innovate on those devices? Should we be looking at devices that combine broadcast and IP for domestic radios in home, probably with voice? Smart speakers, they will continue. They'll be there for a long, long time yet. And I think we'll see more and more of IP listening on smart speakers. But FM has still got very high listening, and so is DAB. And I think that digital listening will continue, broadcast digital listening will continue. But it's the way people are listening on the type of devices, and it's how do we sustain that sector going forward. That's our biggest challenge, I think.
Interesting times ahead.
Yes,
thanks, Lindsay. We'll hear from you a bit further later on. I think now we're going to have a look at a bit of footage from one of our event sponsors.
Welcome, everyone, to the 2021 WorldDAB Automotive Summit. Xperi is proud to be a sponsor of this year's event, and we hope to get together with you in person for next year's event. This year has been quite an amazing year so far. Xperi has reached over 100 million vehicles on the road with our technology. We've certified over 3,000 radios. I'm sure you've all heard about our launch of DTS AutoStage, and most recently we just signed a direct agreement with SWR. All really, really remarkable achievements this year. I'd like you to sit back now and hear from our chief architect, Paul Venezia, for a little more information about DTS AutoStage.
The key pieces of the DTS AutoStage product in relation to radio is the ability to take that dial that used to be just a series of numbers on the screen or a physical dial or things like that and turn it into a more visual experience. So instead of just seeing frequencies on the dial, we provide the ability to show the station names and the station logos in a list. Beyond that, we can show you what's playing on those stations as you scroll through them. So you don't have to tune into the stations to find out what's playing. You can just see, oh, there's a song, there's the artist, and there's a picture of the artist, for instance, as you scroll through. Or if you're listening to non-music content, like an interview or a talk show, we can show that data as well. So it makes browsing through radio more like browsing through a catalog of selected content on a streaming service, but it's broadcast radio and it's local to you.
Get connected to the most sophisticated hybrid radio platform in the world, DTS AutoStage. Get connected to your world, to the only global solution on the planet, to the music that moves you, the important conversations in your community, the memories you make, to our dedicated content validation team, working around the clock to curate the best experience possible for you. Get connected to a scalable network that won't ever leave you waiting, without worrying about privacy or data security, because your security matters to us. Interoperability doesn't happen by accident. Content protection doesn't happen by accident. Reliability doesn't happen by accident. It's by having the highest standards and highest quality in certification and compliance. Get connected to be part of our community as we rise the tide for all, to build the greatest experience across all stations, big and small. Get connected as we build the future of in-car infotainment. DTS AutoStage. Get connected to your world.
It's time now to introduce our new user experience group chairman. Many of you know him, but this is the first time he's spoken at the WorldDAB Automotive event, and we're very proud to have him here. It is, of course, Gregor Pötzsch, product owner, smart functions and gaming at Cariad Volkswagen Group. And he's interviewed by Jacqueline Bierhorst, who's Project Director at Digital Radio Netherlands. Welcome to Gregor and Jacqueline.
Hello. And what a joy and honor to do this 9-minute talk with the new chair of WorldDAB User Experience Working Group, Gregor Pötzsch from Volkswagen Cariad. We're so happy to have you here, Gregor. We want to know more about you and the goals of your User Experience Working Group. So what is your role in Volkswagen Cariad? And for the ones that missed it earlier this morning, tell us about Cariad too.
Thank you, Jackie. I'm Gregor Pötzsch. I'm the product owner at the Cariad, and I'm striving for the best radio user experience in the car.
You've taken on the chairmanship of the WorldDAB User Experience Group. What are the key areas of this group?
The key elements for our group is to bring together broadcasters, suppliers, and car manufacturers, while a joint effort to enhance the best user experience in the car dashboard. To actually do this, we provide UX guidelines to enhance the user experience by asking the broadcasters to deliver better metadata by delivering pictures, textual data, station logos, as we already heard on the full day of this whole event today. And the third thing is, as you already heard, we are focusing for voice control in the future because this is an easier and less distracting way to just ask for what you want. And our first objective is going to the future with Android Automotive. You already heard today what is possible and what will be possible in the future. And we like together with WorldDAB, NAB and Xperi provide an open platform and to enhance the possibilities for the future user in the car.
Okay, and in the car dashboard, you have connected and over-the-air content. Which content should be delivered by which platform in your mind?
In my mind, and also in the mind of the whole VW group, radio is the biggest cornerstone, as also the Skoda colleagues already said. It's the biggest part of the audio consuming in the car. It's like around 70 to 80%, depending on the market. So it's very important that this is the biggest part we get ready and future-proof. The less important part is media demand through Android Auto, CarPlay, or online radio or the internet.
So broadcast is still at the heart. And if you could choose one area, where do you think broadcasters need to improve when thinking of the car?
Yes, this one thing would be metadata, because we learned today how important look and feel and user experience is in the car to match with the competing media providers. So metadata is key, providing identifiable logos to the user, delivering cover arts and matching program art to tell the user which host is running the show, which guest is doing this marvelous talk show I'm following now. This is very important for the user in the car to better relate with the program and the stations.
And if we look at the future, in the future, what things do you think will continue to be important for the drivers in terms of the infotainment system?
For the future, we see online media services like Spotify and radio coming together, and we like to provide a better user experience by recommending best fitting broadcast radio stations and his loved media on USB or even on other apps, that we can deliver the best fitting media and radio the user would like. We like to learn his preferences, and we like to match them with current driving situations.
And if we look at the user experience group, what does this group contain? We've heard about it this morning, and there is a special page even on the website of WorldDAB. Can you tell me more about who is in the group?
Could you repeat? I didn't understand.
Who is in the group of the user experience working group? The different partners like broadcasters or OEMs?
Okay, now I get it. The most important partners are the combination of having the broadcasters delivering all the valuable content together with suppliers who are actually implementing code, hardware, and so on, and the car manufacturers to get together an important user experience role for the future. As we also learned from the surveys we did together with the Radio DNS colleagues, it's very important that all efforts are aligned to bring this key metadata to the user, and it really enhances the user experience and not defies logic and make it worse.
Yeah, we only have very little time left, but I just was wondering, how do you communicate to the broadcasters? How do you make sure that everybody is aware of what the user experience guidelines contain?
Yeah, we are actually using this survey to tell them how to improve the metadata, and we are already having a big campaign in place where we try to contact bigger commercial groups or bigger public broadcaster groups to get to the bottom of all these stations, but trying to trickle down from the bigger networks down to the smaller networks and single stations, so all of them can deliver the same user experience to the listener in the car.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's already time. Many thanks for your insights, Gregor. We're happy that you and your group are bringing the user experience guidelines to a next level. If you are interested in participating or know more about the user experience guidelines, go to www.worlddab.org/automotive. And now, back to you, Louise.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you to you, Gregor, as well. Lovely to hear from our new chairman. I think a few of you may have been having a few audio issues there hearing Gregor, for which we apologise. Obviously, we are dependent on different broadband connections around the world, and they're not always working as well as they should do. Lindsay, just a couple of things I wanted to pick up on you there. Gregor talked a little bit about sort of integrating different apps into sort of one interface. Talk to me about hybrid radio. What kind of what work are you doing there?
I shall just echo what Gregor said earlier on about how broadcast radio, that is really the sort of the backbone to a hybrid radio offer. If you haven't got a really strong, robust broadcast infrastructure, you'll never be able to get a really good hybrid radio experience. And the great thing about hybrid is that it's joining together broadcast and then the internet. And obviously, so you've got a very good solid broadcast offer there. If you want more or richer experience, you could then go and listen over IP as well. So, for example, pick Radio 2, for example, at BBC. You may be listening to Radio 2 in your car and you're driving out of an area where the coverage isn't very strong. It will then take you straight over to the IP side of it. And that, we hope, will then link straight to BBC Sounds, giving the user the much richer experience. So that's everything from live listening and on-demand and podcasts. So these are the things that are really, really important, I think, going forward. And if we don't do that and offer all of this, and we've got all these challenges from these big tech companies coming into that car dashboard, radio will get lost. So we've got to work really, really hard to keep radio as prominent as possible.
Nobody wants that to happen.
No.
Thank you, Lindsay. Right, we're going to hear next from Roger Lanctot, who is Director of Global Automotive Practice Strategy Analytics from the US, with a presentation packed with facts and figures. He's here to tell us all about big tech and the connected car and the case for autonomous broadcast radio. Roger, over to you.
Okay, so big tech and the connected car, the case for autonomous broadcast radio. Please advance that slide. So you hear a lot about the connected car being like a smartphone on wheels. I'd like to suggest that we're looking really more at a smart TV on wheels. Most of us today have a digital television, and what you're seeing on your TV, your digital TV today, is a variety of operating environments that all have different user interfaces, different content, but it's an experience that you're diving into, but you have a choice and you can jump from one to the other. That's the kind of experience that's coming to the car. The smartphone on wheels is more app-centric, and we've heard a lot about app-centric experiences today, and apps are going to be absolutely relevant in the car, no question about it, but I think we're going to be evolving towards more of a experience-centric experience in the car, and with multiple environments that we'll be diving into. And so my comments are coming in the context of this evolution. Next slide, please. So this slide is just to give you a sense of our forecast for the proportion of cars that will be connected. In fact, there are many more connected cars on the road today than are actually connected. They have the connectivity capability, but consumers have made the decision to use their phone instead of the connection in the car. So I won't get into that too much now, but advance the slide, please. And to the next slide. Also, what we saw earlier in some of the presentations showing some of the new dashboard experiences, you're seeing this cockpit domain controller experience, a completely joined up experience of the infotainment with the safety systems in the car for a completely contextualized experience on a larger screen with alerts to your driving environment, etc. So this is another area where the industry is moving, and it's important for the industry to be aware of that, the broadcast industry. Advance the slide. What else is coming? Voice assistants in the car, of course. We've heard a lot about speech recognition. Well, it isn't just speech recognition, but it is tuned increasingly to the in-car experience, and it's joining up the car with the mobile device, with your home, with your whole activity associated with your mobile experience. And this next slide gives a view to all the different relationships. And you can see Amazon is quite dominant in this space. But of course, we have Siri. Of course, we have Google, SoundHound, and other players in this segment. You can advance the slide. Also, we're going to see driver monitoring systems mandated within a year or two, particularly in Europe and probably across other markets as we move towards more autonomous driving. Ironically, the regulators want to make sure drivers are paying attention. That also means that the car is observing the drivers. And I hope I don't have to explain what the implications there are with regard to identifying who the listener is, what they're doing, are they paying attention, what their behavior is in the car. Advance the slide. So car connectivity is also changing with 5G. So we're getting 5G in the car, a safety-centric collision avoidance experience. It will enable enhanced content streaming capabilities. You're getting dual SIM implementations from the German automakers, which will allow you to connect your car to your existing wireless plans, something that's already available in North America. Electrification and semi-autonomous vehicle operation means not only more connected cars, but more need for the consumer to subscribe to that connection, to take advantage of the vehicle connection, not just their smartphone. Driving will increasingly become connected for road hazards, etc. User interfaces will shift to voice and gesture. the industry is moving towards a service-oriented architecture that can allow them to deploy apps, to deploy experiences to the car after the car is sold, and to upgrade and update those experiences. So very different, and this is coming very quickly. And radio must adapt to this new contextually aware driving experience. I think we heard earlier about how some of the French automakers have the sort of metadata for the stations embedded in the car and unchangeable, not updatable. This is changing. This is going to be very different in the very near future. Next slide. The car as a content delivery platform. So Google with Maps, Places, Search, YouTube, Apple, Map, iTunes, podcasts, apps, Amazon with Alexa, Amazon Prime, and increasingly with integration of safety sensor information, SiriusXM in North America with the satellite radio experience, primarily content. Ludo, a joint venture between LG and Luxoft, building on the WebOS platform, which is well known from the connected TV sector. Xperi, the radio as a service platform, a global solution. Harman, now with their App Store, previously mentioned in presentations today. Tesla with Autopilot. Who's to say we won't have a GM vehicle with a Tesla Autopilot platform in the car? What about Netflix, Disney, HBO? These are the things we need to be mindful of that are coming in the automotive industry. These are the companies that are looking at this connected experience in the car. Next slide, please. So transferable experiences enabled by cloud connectivity-centric architecture, consumer preferences for familiar user interfaces need to accelerate deployment and evolution of new experiences in the car, content management, contextual awareness, safety, and post-COVID, the return of the car as the fourth screen. So this is what the industry is thinking. This is where the industry is moving. And this is what the broadcast industry needs to be mindful of. Next slide. So what matters most now? Metadata, your Xperi, your big partner for metadata. Ad insertion, how is that going to happen in the car? How does that work? Audience measurement. We are going to solve the problem of audience measurement in the car, and then we will have perfect attribution enabled in that, and that will be a completely different experience. Searchable, discoverable content, recommendation engines. What is that going to look like in the car? Automakers are wrestling with these issues. Partners are helping them solve these problems right now. Next slide. Xperi, I won't get into details. You've heard a lot about Xperi today, but it's a massive portfolio of content delivery and service delivery. Next slide, please. Audio Burst, Radio Line, Radio Player, Fluxbox, Q, Instreamatic. These are the new players coming on the scene to enable this metadata enhanced experience that is increasingly visual, increasingly engaging and interactive with the driver. Next slide, please. I'm not going to delve into what Audio Burst does, but just to call attention to the fact that they are one provider that is bringing together all these different kinds of content in the car. Next slide, please. And of course, we've heard about Google and Android. Next slide. This is a picture of the adoption of the Android operating system in infotainment systems, but more importantly, I'm painting a picture here of the adoption of Google Automotive services. So a fully joined up cloud-based experience in the car, fully contextualized, and for app delivery directly into the infotainment system in the car, not just projected from the smartphone. Next slide, please. And the good news is, well, it's kind of good news and bad news. So we have regularly surveyed listeners, drivers about their content consumption behavior. And what we have found is that AM, FM radio still is dominant, but it is losing some ground. Next slide, please. The big takeaway in terms of daily in-car use, streaming music services and portable owned music have overtaken AM/FM radio in China. In Western markets, AM/FM radio is still the most used in-car source, though satellite radio and streaming music are close competitors in the US. And this gives you some idea of what that mix looks like across those three regions. Clearly, China is a little bit of an outlier, a little bit unique. Next slide, please. So what is the takeaway from all of this data, from all of this insighted information? The car has evolved to a platform, the fourth screen. Google wants a piece of the action, but others are crowding in. Amazon, perhaps most notably, but there are others as well. Automakers like digital TV makers will need to accommodate multiple platform experiences in the car, some content focused, others perhaps safety centric, some perhaps bringing both to the party. The onset of 5G will facilitate this shift towards platform architecture. Google will be both partner and competitor, enabling and supporting content. Digital radio technology is the tool that is leveling the field of play, new content, new user experiences, more content, audience measurement, and attribution in the works. This will transform the experience in the car and the industry. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Roger. Right, let's change tack a little now, and we're going to dive into the world of targeted advertising with Eugenio Teana, who's Head of Research and Development at RTL 102.5 Hit Radio in Italy. Eugenio, over to you.
So let me start with the point. Today I heard many times the word experience, and I totally agree with this point that where we have to work is to create a really nice experience, an innovative experience for the radio, because we are working in this direction. We have to add the services on that, and we have to give to the user the better experience that they can have. But another point is related to how we manage our company. We are a broadcaster, and we didn't say that our business model is the advertising. So we don't have any kind of subscription, and we have also to work in this direction. So I will try to explain how DAB can help this process, but also how the radio is moving in this direction. I don't know if you can see my slide, but let me start. I will start with an overview of what we are doing today, not only in Italy, but all around the world. So we are using, as you can see, the slideshow for several topics. So I mean that we can use it when the artists come to the radio. We can show to the listener something more than only the audio. And if we can go on, we can also see a video.
C'est Grand Hôtel, Talk Music and News.
La Minute, Chroneur Attitude.
Jean-Baptiste Tuzet.
Unforgettable.
Oh yeah. Bonjour, c'est Chantal là-dessous.
Chroneur Radio vous propose de découvrir la gamme de récepteurs radio de la marque Pure.
La Maison Krug.
Un voyage à travers l'histoire du champagne.
Produit haut de gamme Solavi pour le bien-être de votre...
Only have eyes for you. Are the stars out tonight?
We can also see some other example from Switzerland that they are also using the slideshow for several ways for the content, but also for the advertising. And as you can see, there are some examples in car, out of the car. And we can go on, and we can also see some example from Italy that are in the next slide. So here is an example that I think that give also the idea about the interaction between the user and the interface. So, for example, RIDE public services have a QR code that help the user to create a connection between Telegram and the radio station. We can go on. So the summary is how we can use it today. Today, we are very focused on the content. We can use a related image to the song that is on air, the artist image, the artist name, song title, radio station information, weather, traffic, and so on. So we add some metadata on top of what the user are listening. We also use the playing of the visual asset for the commercial. So we are trying to open the experience also in terms of visual for the radio commercial spot. And we are working also on the synchronization of the audio. That is the most important topic on this work. When a small spot is played on radio, at the same time you must have the visual of this kind of content. But we can go on with the slide. Let me share with you a recent research made by a very important institute in Italy, is Socio-Economical Research Institute. And what we discover? We discover that the people, as today, because they learn time by time, they think about radio not only as a unique place where the people can listen to radio is the radio box, but is the mobile application, is the television, is wherever. So the radio is spread in every kind of devices, and I think that is the point of experience. So the content is on the center, and each platform could be a good places where the people can listen to radio. Obviously, I go back to the point, why DAB? Because we have an experience for millions of people at the same time. We have to be strong and we have to be efficient. And for sure, DAB could not be out of this strategy. Probably not alone, with something else. We'll see how we are moving. You can go on, please. This is the point. How we try to give to the people that buy advertising from us the better experience. We are speaking about total audience. So, I mean, when a spot is played on the radio, at the same time is spread on each platform, because in each piece of these, let me say, devices, there are some users can get the messages. And the point is that where you have only the audio, you can use the audio. When you have something more, you must increase the capacity to communicate to the user. Please, next. This is an example, and I think that is very interesting. We are in Italy, RTL 102.5, the radio where I work as head of innovation, launched more than 10 years ago the Radiovisione. Radiovisione is exactly the point that we didn't create a television format. We bring the radio as it is, and we add image on that, visual image on that. So the speaker from the studio, the video clip of the music. Obviously, when there is the advertising, what we done, we create an image of the products and we use the word as a lyric that say exactly, that print exactly what the voice say, and which is the value is more than have only the audio. Next, please. When I was prepared this presentation, I was thinking about this point. When we explain that the commercial could be also multimedia, in some mind the point could be, what does it mean? It means that the communication of the audio is not strong, is not important. Next, please. The real point is that yes, it's very strong, but we cannot close the eyes and we cannot think about how the world is changed from 20 years. So it means that today everything is also visual. So I mean that if you have a display, if you have the opportunity, you must use the opportunity. Next, please. And as I say, the point is that, yes, the audio continue to be a very strong experience, a very strong weapon on the advertising. But if you add something more, add on top. You add value on what you are doing. Next, please. I start my presentation on the point really for hybrid. I'm quite sure that we are in a bridge situation. So I mean that we make a lot of experience with DAB, where it's very strong in terms of audio. We know that the technology have a lot of advantages because it's broadcast. We are working with the IP. We are working together with Radio Player, with other projects that put the radio in center of the dashboard. But the idea is to use BAF technology to have the better experience for the user. Obviously, when you can use also the IP, you can create personalized interactive multimedia advertising. And I expect that will be the next step. So the real value is, okay, the broadcast is strong and main, but we can add value on advertising also with the IP. And when the end user needs some information more, can click and can interact with the user. Next, please. So the point is that this is one picture of the car, but what we expect in the future, what is happening? If you can go on the next, we understand what's happened. The real point is this one. So the radio, also in the car, everything is become more visual, more multimedia. And so this is an opportunity. Obviously, we talk about the distraction. We have to take care about this point. But the real point is to get more value on our communication, the visual could be an important part. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A great contribution there for our commercial radio audience today, but also some interesting points for everyone in the DAB Plus space. So a big thank you to Eugenio for creating that overview for us. After Eugenio's fantastic presentation, it's time now for our final session. And joining us for that, we have two speakers who are also looking at the potential of providing content and advertising, but from the point of view of personalisation and localisation. Francis Goffin is Special Advisor to the CEO of RTBF, and Chris Ambrosic is VP at Discovery at TiVo. They're here today in conversation with Thomas Grangrid, who's Head of Digital Partnerships at Swedish Radio and also an active member of the EBU Connected Car Group. Over to you all.
Thank you so much. Thanks for letting me introduce this last session of the day. And as you said, Louise, this short session will be about the kind of holy grail of digital presentation, personalization. And we will hear two presenters talking about their view on how the future could look like and the opportunity that is hidden in this area when you combine linear broadcasted radio with personalization. So first, I would like to give the floor to Francis Goffin, that is working on RTBF. Please, Francis.
Thank you, Thomas. Hello, everyone. And a special hello to Australia, where part of my family lives. So my name is Francis Goffin, and I work for RTBF. So let's go with the first slide, please. You probably know that Belgium is a federal country with two main languages, Dutch and French. And RTBF is the public service media of the French-speaking community in Belgium, where RTBF runs 8 radio stations. You can see here a very schematic representation of the broadcast coverage of Brussels and Wallonia by all the French-speaking broadcasters, including RTBF and its radio station, of course. I'd like to share with you this afternoon or this evening for my Australian family, to share with you two subjects related to DAB+, about localization and personalization. And let's go with the first one. It's about the RTBF regional radio stations called Vivacité, which produces and broadcasts 7 different regional programs in the morning. Here you can see a schematic representation of the FM network coverage of each of these regional programs. But next slide, please. But when we launched DAB+ in 2019, Vivacité had to face the challenge of being broadcast on a DAB+ layer made of only 4 regional multiplexes, as you can see. Thus, the RTBF challenge was how to turn into opportunities this limitation of 4 regional multiplexes when you have 7 FM regional morning shows to broadcast. Next, please. So this is our question. And then next, yes, please. The solution, it was the implementation of a DAB+ adjacent dual channels management in each of the 4 regional multiplexes, as you can see here on the slide. Therefore, in the mornings, thanks to DAB+, the listeners of a region, wherever they are located in this region, can choose to listen between 2 different Vivacité regional morning programs. This is impossible in FM, where they can only listen to the morning show that is available in FM in their location. This interesting DAB+ dual channel management has recently experienced a significant extension to the Vivacité Sports program that are generally broadcast in the afternoon or in the evening. The problem of sports programs is that either you love them, either you hate them. As a general interest radio station targeting a wide scope of the population, Vivacité has always to make a difficult choice in FM between broadcasting a sport program or broadcasting a music program, for example. For the first time, this stark choice is over for Vivacité because since the beginning of the European Football Championship, Vivacité offers 2 DAB programs to the listeners wherever they are located in Belgium, in French-speaking Belgium. One is a live broadcast of each match, football match, and the other one is a musical program. So this is a first step in the direction of more personalized programs. It's quite basic, in fact, but this experience has given us the desire to move forward with more personalization. And so came the quite futurist idea that RTBF and the private broadcaster together, the commercial of our markets, together we would like to develop. Next, please. And this is the last slide. Here is the concept of which we dream. And I heard that it seems that Eugenio is also has also the same dream. It is the replacement of some audio content of a live DAB+. Please, could you keep the slide on the screen, please? Yeah, thank you. In case of targeted advertising, so here you can see it's the audio content replacement. It can be any kind of audio content. In case of advertising, it would be called addressable radio advertising, just like the addressable TV advertising, which has started successfully in Belgium last year. It's like the targeted or programmatic advertising we can find on many digital platforms. But here we are talking about doing it on DAB+, thanks to a dedicated hybrid DAB+ and IP technology still to be developed. You can see on the screen how worked the audio flow. The broadcaster produces and broadcasts in DAB+, its live radio programs, like always. Then when the radio station wants to deliver to the listener an audio-targeted content, it has to encrypt an inaudible signal in its live audio program, which will trigger the insertion of a targeted audio content provided by IP. It sounds quite simple, but in fact it implies to solve quite a lot of issues. It's why the Digital Radio Alliance of our market, maradio.be, has suggested to Radio DNS to establish a working group focused on this concept. And this working group has already started to work. And hopefully, this hybrid technology will be largely used by the radio industry in 1 or 2 years. We hope so. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks so much, Francis. Really interesting, raises a lot of questions. I think we will have time for questions in the end, but we will move on to the next speaker. I'm happy to introduce Chris Ambrosic, that is Vice President of Discovery at TiVo. Please.
Thank you very much, Thomas, and good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, good evening, wherever you're dialing in from. So I am with TiVo, and TiVo is a part of Xperi. Xperi, of course, I imagine a number of people know that company through a long-standing relationship in the industry of HD radio, DTS. But where I became a part of Xperi is through TiVo, and TiVo brings another element that is going to become very relevant as it relates to the connected car and to personalization in general. And that is the concept of bringing personalization out of the home and out of the living room. If we go to the next slide, please. Something that is very ubiquitous. And this is a screenshot of, a typical type of environment that I think everybody's very accustomed to in their living room. They have a set of carousels they can select. These carousels are, of course, provided in such a way that they deliver personalized results. My results look different than your results. And that's all based on algorithms. Now, these things are helping win the battle of the living room. And just to give you a sense of why this matters, when personalization is utilized, we see very significant changes in behavior. We see people watching about 25% more content on the video side. We see people churning away from their suppliers of content to the tune of about 3 times less. And this is where I get to play, and it's a fun and enjoyable experience inside of TiVo and inside of Xperi. Well, we're taking that, if we go to my last slide here, the next slide, please. We're taking that concept over into the car and being able to deliver a series of carousels, algorithmically driven, with an understanding of what the person enjoys listening to. And you can imagine that these carousels respond to different types of behaviors, because what happens in the car in the morning is very different what happens in the car in the afternoon. It is very different from what happens in the car on the weekend. And these parallels are so similar to what happens in the living room. So the war for the ears, I'm used to calling it the war for the eyeballs, but I'll call it the war for the ears, is on. And it's all about driving engagement, increasing the desire to interact with these types of solutions that bring personal results. And the end game is, the person who wins here is going to be able to monetize and be able to deliver the right type of experience, not only from what to listen to, but also from an advertisement point of view. And with that, Thomas, I'll hand back to you.
Oh, thank you very much. Super interesting. There's like a ton of questions around this area, but unfortunately we have quite limited of time. So just one question to you, Francis. What will the car manufacturer have to do to kind of meet this idea that you are having?
In fact, you're right. The first target is the car receivers, of course, and the connected cars. So I think that our industry have to collaborate with the car industry to find an agreement, because the car receiver will have to get the content provided by IP and to insert it at the right moment, thanks to the trigger I explained in the DAB Plus live audio program. So it needs collaboration. And I think that one of the main messages we heard today is that our industry needs a lot of more collaboration between broadcasters, but also between broadcasters and manufacturers, for example, which is the case here.
Yeah, okay. And Chris, I'm curious, this prototype that they're showing, have you tested it on audiences, and if you have tested it, what is their kind of opinion about it? What are the reactions on when you test this?
Yeah, so this is, again, another piece that I think TiVo has historically brought to the market. Not only being able to test with users in a lab and doing A/B tests in that environment, but actually having been out in the field in terms of delivering the right types of experiences and getting sort of that raw signal back from the users themselves. Now historically, that's been more on the video side, but it's the same sort of concept, right? You want to bring the right technologies. You want to bring, I mentioned, A/B testing. You want to bring the data-driven decisions, because that's the only way of knowing. No one person, even those of us that have fortunately been able to have a lot of experience in this space, know intimately and precisely the way users are going to interact. And so the challenge is to ensure that we have the right type of mechanisms in place to drive the right messages, to learn the right signals, and then to iterate.
Thanks so much. I could go on asking questions, I think, the whole afternoon, but we have a limited amount of time. So I thank Francis and Chris for your super interesting ideas. And back to you, Louise.
I think you're right there. We could have probably run a whole afternoon on the topic because it's really something that broadcasters need to start planning for. Many thanks to Francis, Chris and Thomas for bringing us our final session for today. What a day it's been. Before we finish, though, let's welcome back all of our speakers for one final Q&A session. And whilst we're getting them all back onto our virtual sofa, I'm just going to have a look at some of the comments that you've kindly been leaving for us on our wall throughout the day. A shout out to Andreas Mikala. Thank you for your comments, keeping the conversation on DAB features going on. Hello also to Roberto Moro. Thank you for joining us. Roberto leads the WorldDAB Aftermarket Devices Group. Lindsay, I think there's still... is everybody on the sofa now? Are they... Not quite, Lindsay. Let me throw a quick question into you, because I know, Lindsay, you were nodding your head furiously listening to Roger when he was talking about some of the challenges. So obviously you were agreeing with some of the things that he was saying.
Yes, definitely. Sorry, I should have said at the beginning when you asked what the challenges were, and I actually went into quite a big discussion about the domestic radio market when I'm at an automotive conference. So apologies about that. No, I totally agree with what Roger was saying. The biggest we've got two big challenges. One is how do we keep broadcast radio prominent in cars going forward? That's a massive challenge for us. The connected car brings a lot of opportunities to broadcasters and challenges at the same time. And there's no doubt connected cars are going to change the way people are listening to radio. There's no doubt about that. And we've got to react to that very, very quickly. And Roger is absolutely right. Without really good sort of searchability, discoverability, attribution back to broadcasters, data, this monetizing data, who owns the data? This is a key thing for broadcasters. If somebody's listening to our services, we need to know who is listening, how they're listening. And that's the way you actually learn about how you actually provide more services to that listener. So you can actually look at how you provide recommendations, for example. But at the moment, there's absolutely no regulation around any of this. And I know that is something that in the UK we're very looking at and discussing a lot. And I know a lot of our European broadcaster colleagues are doing the same. So, should there be some form of regulation introduced into that connected car space to keep radio safe in cars? So there's an awful lot to do in this space, as you can tell. We've heard from people, we've had contributions from all around the world. We've got people from all around the world listening in. How does that does one market relate to what's going on in another market, and how important is it that they are all talking to each other in as much as they can, learning from each other anyway? Yeah, I think, the big thing, it is all about communication and how you collaborate. And as we said before, there's various groups that can do that. And I know Francis referred to it as well, and again has called out for better collaboration amongst broadcasters and manufacturers. And we're actually doing that. I mean, the NAB pilot project, for example, that has brought together broadcasters from all over the world, so Europe, Australia, US as well. So it can be done. WorldDAB is a great example of it. It's got broadcasters and manufacturers and regulators. It's got a really good consortium there as well. But you have to agree what the common message is. And we've got to be consistent in our messaging. And I think everyone would agree that broadcast radio is still really, really important. And if we actually work on that together and act together, that's actually we're in a much stronger position to actually agree how we should do that. Okay, and you think that everybody will pull together to push that forward? I do think they will. I do think because for us, radio listening is so important in the car, not just from the broadcaster, but from the consumer's point of view. Every broadcaster you talk to is looking at the different ways of different types of content they should be providing now for in-car. Going back years ago, consumers would just switch the radio on and would be listening. Now they want unique content. They want content for a 10-minute drive. They want content for a 30-minute drive. It's all about personalisation now as well. I think one thing I've taken away from today is that there is a lot of common interest and common will within the industry. So that's always good to hear. Right, let's go now over to some of our final questions. And we have a question to Eugenio. How do you create slides that don't distract?
Oh, well... I think that this question comes from someone that never tried to drive a Tesla car. No, the point is that, to be honest, we are, as I said before, we are in a way where we are building something different because now the technology are able and the receiver is coming with the opportunity to create some on that. Obviously, what we have to do is we have to create something that is not frenetic. I mean, in terms of changing image, we have to give to the user the time to also to have a look of the content, because they are not looking at a movie. The adding of image is a reinforce of the audio. The audio is still the principal part of the radio. We have not to forget that we are a radio. Audio is power, multimedia is a layer on top. So for sure, the marketing could be able to create the better experience, to create value on this topic. We need some time, and we need the collaboration also with the manufacturer, because they are key on this process. The receiver have to be able to give the option to the user to consume the multimedia content when they are driving. Or we have also to think about the future. Probably in the next future, the car will drive by themselves, and the radio, I hope that will be still there and entertain the user. That's the point.
We'll need something to do, won't we, if we're not driving? Question to Roger from Martin Koch. Roger, Martin says, what reactions from listeners do you expect if they see visual ad insertion in the dash?
Well, I think clearly the preference would be for audio advertising, of course. But I think if it's relevant, if it's meaningful, or if the option is there to block it, in other words, maybe you pay to have no advertising, perhaps. I think that would be. I'm already hearing about. So we have a platform in North America from Zevo in the GM marketplace. And I've already heard stories about completely irrelevant ads, like for a nail salon going to a male driver. Makes no sense. So that kind of thing is an immediate turnoff. So I think people welcome things that are relevant, but I think there's a risk of really, going too much toward this. Oh, you're driving by a Starbucks. Here's your coupon. I don't think that really is going to work.
Thank you. Heinz Zendgraf from South Africa, he says, I don't have a question, but a big thank you in capital letters for the most interesting and informative day. Long live DAB+, something we'll all agree with, I'm sure. Another question that has come in, though, this one is for Gregor. Is there legislation for SLS? And can you tell us about the WorldDAB SLS guidelines?
Hello. Yeah, there are actual regulations. We saw regulations in Poland popping up with demanding slideshow as a mandatory feature, which was quite new for us as a car manufacturer, and it was very big of a deal of discussion and how this should be done. But on the topic for slideshow guidelines, we are now working again on an update of an already existing guideline, and I believe this is an ever origination of new indication to all the broadcasters which are coming too new to the market or trying first to insert slideshow as part of their messaging. It's very important that they follow kind of rules and make it happen so it's also visible for the car users, and it will not distract them from the actual driving.
A question that's come in for Francis, Chris and Thomas. So let's put it to Francis first of all. How do you see the radio of the future? What would you personally like to see as part of the driver experience?
I think if the dream I explained is realized, that the driver will have a mix of content delivered everywhere in the area by the broadcaster in the coverage area, and I think that more and more content will be personalized for him, for the driver. I mean, it can be located information, traffic information. It can be advertising, addressable advertising, which I think it's really important for the future of the radio revenues, because I'm afraid that we will have to face a decline of the general broadcast advertising, and we know that in the digital advertising market, it's the programmatic advertising which is now more and more in the fashion. So I think that the solution I tried to imagine this afternoon is it could protect the broadcaster industry and also deliver to the driver a very interesting experience of a mix of very good general interest information content, and then more dedicated, personalized content for him, which is, I'm sure, more and more important.
And Chris, maybe you can follow up on that one. What's your dream for the future?
Sure. Yeah, I wrote down three things. The first one sort of is echoing what Francis said. This sort of cross-content recommendation concept. What I listen to on a radio station may influence, what gets recommended to me on one of my streaming services may, influence a podcast that gets recommended to me. The second thing is context aware, being context aware, and sort of hitting, Roger, on a point you made, like sitting in the car, and the car should know maybe, profiles, what, the types of individuals that are sitting in the car. When I sit alone, okay, I can listen to some really fun music that may not be appropriate for my kids, but when my kid gets in the back, the system should know that. And so context aware is number two. And then I think number three is probably respecting privacy. And I think that is a balance that all recommendation platforms need to strike, that careful balance between understanding what are the signals that are necessary to drive this great personalization and engaging experience, but also give the comfort level that is, GDPR respective, that is CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act respective. I think those are the three things I'd like to see.
A lot of people nodding there, so I think a lot of people agreeing with you. Sadly, I'm afraid we need to wrap up our Q&A as we've come to the end of this year's WorldDAB Automotive event. It's been a fantastic day. I've certainly learned a lot. We very much hope that next year we'll be able to welcome you all again, but this time in person. Do be sure to follow us on social for all the latest news from the world of digital radio, and you can also sign up for our newsletters. You'll find more details for that on our website. That's worlddab.org. If you'd like to add your voice to some of the many conversations we've had here today, please contact the project office about becoming a member. Finally, a big thank you from WorldDAB to all of today's speakers, to our sponsors, Experie, Radio Player, AVT and Gates Air Force for supporting us once again. And thanks to all of you for watching and contributing with your questions. They've helped make this event such a success. Bye from all of us here in the studio. We look forward to seeing you again at next year's WorldDAB Automotive event.
WorldDAB, working with the automotive sector. Drivers love radio, and radio is going digital. DAB Plus is now in all new cars across Europe. WorldDAB brings together the experts, broadcasters, network operators, and the auto sector. Together, they produce the best digital radio experience for drivers. The WorldDAB Automotive Working Group focuses on putting the driver at the heart of the design process, providing a richer visual radio experience using metadata, optimizing the performance of digital radio, and ensuring aftermarket devices provide a quality experience. Our Automotive Help Point provides support to help manufacturers and broadcasters. Find out more at www.worlddab.org/automotive.